Welcome to another UFC prediction video. This week we've got UFC Shanghai, but first of all, let's take a look at last week. Um, I had two really good underdogs, in my opinion, in Barbosa and LaRon Murphy. LaRon Murphy, of course, won a little bit too early for us because it did cost us the over 1.5. I didn't know Pico was going to be that reckless in the way he fought. I was actually more worried about Pico finishing Murphy, although I'm okay with that because Murphy is very defensive. But Murphy finishing Pico, I don't think was in many people's books. So yeah, and then Barbosa as an underdog, I honestly thought she might have won. But it was a very close fight. I think she was better in the first round and probably the third round. But hey, it is what it is. But we hit the other locks. Just again, the Murphy over 1.5 didn't hit because Murphy destroyed Pico with that spinning back elbow. And I didn't put my parlays in accordingly. I kind of put in like every parlay, so I lost pretty much all the parlays on my Bet MMA on that, and I apologize for that. Hopefully, you guys made better parlays than I did, and in the future, I will definitely not put something like that in every single parlay. All right, kicking off the card, we got two guys that are both lost their UFC debuts, taking on each other. Yuran Sadi Baldiev and Dr. Nurgoje. I did watch Nurgoje fight in the Dana White Contender Series, and honestly, he was talked up to be a big finisher, and he got the guy in the third round. Honestly, I don't know. I'm not very impressed with Dr. Nurgoje, and I don't really understand. I don't the lines moved a lot. He opened up at plus 250 and now he's at plus 110, which I agree. I think the fight is a lot closer. I don't think Saltabay Baldiev should be minus 300 favorite, considering he lost his UFC debut against Martin Budai. But this fight is just too many unknowns, man. Too many unknowns. I don't know if either of these guys are going to be good at the UFC level. We'll see when they fight each other. So yeah, no bets, no round bets. Just pass. There's no reason to put any money on these two guys. Next, we got Xiao Long taking on Yu Su Yong. Both of these guys are, I wrote here, decision merchants. I mean, they more often than not win and lose by decision. I'm not, super impressed by either of these two guys. I do think Xiao Long is probably better, just from what he looks more athletic. His punches have a bit more zing to them, if you will. But from a betting standpoint, it's hard to take any of these two guys. The over 1.5, I do like a lot at minus 550. I think that is a good parlay piece. I don't see a finish coming out of either of these two guys, especially not in the first round. Next, Yija taking on Weston Wilson. And what the hell, minus 1,200. In some books, he's like minus 1,500 or something. There is no way we will ever lay minus 1,200 on Yija unless he's fighting like me or someone. He's 0-2 in the UFC. To be fair, he was the underdog in both of those fights, and he lost. He's shown tankiness. He's very tanky. He doesn't get dropped very often. I mean, he does get dropped, but he doesn't like give up. He doesn't quit. He gets back up. None of those are good things, to boost when you're minus 1,200. You should be like really, really dominant. Weston Wilson has a submissions chance to win, and it's a legit chance, right? I'm not gonna say he is gonna win by submission. But if he is going to win, it's probably going to be by submission. However likely that is going to be, I don't know. I don't really care. There's no way we are betting Yija at minus 1,200. He is not worth that price. Even from a guy, I love my high, like minus 800 favorites because when they're aligned with, their skill set and how lopsided the skill gap is between them and their opponent, I'll pay that money in my parlays, man, and we'll make money, right? But this is not that case. I don't see that much of a gap, man. What the hell? Okay, so I'm passing this completely. The computer likes Yija and the over 1.5. I don't like either of those two things, so I don't think we're going to bet them. Moving on, we got Michel Pereira taking on Kyle Daukaus. Lucky for Pereira. He was supposed to fight Marco Tulio, and I was very confident in Tulio, man. I was going to bet the house on Tulio to win that. Unfortunately, that fight didn't go through. He's replaced by a UFC returnee in Kyle Daukaus, who's just mid, man. I mean, he's got some nice submission games. Like, the whole point here is this fight is Michel Pereira's to lose, except I don't know where his head's at. He got destroyed by Fluffy Hernandez who doesn't? But that changes a man, right? And he's not getting any younger. So I don't know. He's physically more dominant than Daukaus. Obviously, just look at those two guys. So a first round finish, second round finish, very likely, or a dominant decision. I just don't trust him. I don't trust Pereira at this point in his career to beat anybody, including Chris Daukaus. So I am passing this fight completely. The computer is very keen on Pereira, and it makes sense. So we're gonna put that as a, it's a good bet, not guaranteeing, not locking this whatsoever, but it's not bad. Next, we got Rong Zhu taking on Austin Hubbard, and like right off the bat, I do like the over 1.5 already because in Austin Hubbard fight, over 1.5 is in the play here. Rong Zhu is much better striker, much better striker, crisp striking. Actually took out a very promising prospect in Cody Steele in Cody Steele's debut, which boosted Rong Zhu's stock a lot, obviously, because he did lose, unfortunately, to Chris Padilla by just a fluky, unlucky elbow that really messed up his eye. So the doctor had to stop the fight. I think Rong Zhu wins this. I don't, I think, obviously Hubbard is going to be trying to grapple and take him down. But I feel like at this point, Rong Zhu should be able to do enough damage on the feet and at least get back to his feet when taken down. I don't see Hubbard challenging Rong Zhu. If Rong Zhu is going to fight in his home country and make a run in his UFC career, he's got to beat Austin Hubbard, and I think he will. I'm very confident in Rong Zhu at minus 250. I think that's a pretty good price. The over 1.5 at minus 450 is rock solid as well. Next, we got Charles Johnson taking on Lanier Kavanagh. Lanier Kavanagh is actually part Chinese, so he's got a home crowd favorite here. You wouldn't expect that by looking at the guy. And Charles Johnson is just unpredictable, man. This guy can beat anyone. He beat Joshua Van, in a fight that he was winning by knocking Joshua Van out. But he's also lost to guys like Durden and stuff. So I don't know. He's never been finished. And Lanier Kavanagh isn't exactly a finisher. He's a high pace, high output, low kind of like a damage like overtime kind of guy. Who's gonna win? I mean, like obviously you would have to go with Lanier Kavanagh here. I just don't. I watched his last fight with Da Silva, and like he won that 29-28 across the board, meaning that he did unanimously lose a round. And I think Charles Johnson is more than capable of taking at least one round from Lanier Kavanagh, and that in itself doesn't make me too comfortable with putting too much on Lanier Kavanagh here. So all in all, I think Kavanagh is a good play. The computer likes Kavanagh quite a bit. I think the over 1.5 is where the money is here, minus 600. Put that in a parlay, and you will do well. Next, we got Maheshate taking on Gage Young. I just don't want to touch this fight at all. I just don't know what to make of these two guys. Maheshate and Gage Young, they seem very close, as the odds will suggest. And when the odds are ever that close, unless there's a really good reason to pick the underdog, there's really no reason to bet at all. Round betting here is pretty tough as well. Maheshate doesn't get finished that much, but Gage Young does have a 67% knockout rate. Yikes. And yeah, so I'm passing this completely. Next, we got Nuraji taking on Kiefer Crosby. I think Nuraji here should definitely win this fight. Kiefer Crosby is not it's not UFC material in my opinion. He's 0-2 in the UFC. He's been, all his losses have been by finish. And Nuraji has a 100% finish rate. So I'm just thinking Nuraji by finish is probably a pretty good bet. Although you can always be safe and just take Nuraji by money line, which is minus 500. Very solid parlay piece. The round betting, not so much. Moving right along, we got Sumardarji taking on Kevin Borjas. Sumardarji is just Sumardarji, man. Like, I feel like he's getting better with his grappling. The grappling improvement has been tremendous over his last few fights because that was his big problem, right? He keeps getting submitted. 86% losses by submission. The only thing here is he doesn't have to worry about that. Kevin Borjas is not a grappler. He is a striker, a very good one at that. His last fight against Ronaldo Rodriguez, he was a pretty big underdog, right? Like really big underdog, I think. And he just dominated Rodriguez on the feet, although Rodriguez isn't that good on the feet. But Borjas is, legit on the feet. So I think it's going to be a nice stand-up match between these two guys. And because I think it's a stand-up match, I don't foresee this fight ending early because there's no submission risks. And I don't think either of these two guys have enough power to just one punch knock out the other guy. I think it's going to be damage over time. There might be a chance of a late finish. But yeah, I do like the over 1.5 again at minus 500. Who wins here? I don't know. I actually think Borjas has a higher chance of winning just from his last performance, but that might be recency bias. Moving right along, we got Sergey Pavlovich taking on Waldo Cortez Acosta. Yeah, I just feel like we've seen a complete different Pavlovich ever since his loss to uh you know how am I forgetting the Aspinall, Tom Aspinall. He lost to, it's like, I mean, it's not even that loss that bothers me, because I mean it's Tom Aspinall, for God's sakes. Everyone can get knocked out by Tom Aspinall. Then he loses the decision to Alexander Volkov, right? That questions me, because Pavlovich shouldn't, like, the way, at least his run up heavyweight, he's been knocking out everybody left, right, and center. So then he loses a decision to Alexander Volkov, and then he wins a decision against Rosinio Rosenstrike, which is also a problem, because Rosenstrike is the type of guy he should be knocking out. So I don't really understand what happened to Pavlovich. I'm worried about his confidence level. And with big knockout guys in the heavyweight, confidence is a big thing, because you got to believe you're better than the other guy and be able to knock him out. Whereas Waldo Cortez Acosta, I think, is pretty underrated. I mean, his 7-1 UFC record looks great, but the majority of those wins aren't against the same caliber as the guys that Pavlovich has fought. But he's also never been finished. He's never been knocked out. He's never been knocked out in his career. So that, his chin's pretty good. Logic would say that Pavlovich wins this because of levels in this game, and I think Pavlovich's striking should be levels ahead of Acosta. But I mean, how confident am I in Pavlovich? Not so much. The computer actually is extremely confident in Pavlovich, putting it at a champion level, which is like 85% confidence. So for that purpose alone, we're going to put that as a viable bet here. But personally speaking, I'm not too confident in it. All right, our co-main event, which is a 5-round fight, by the way, between Brian T. City Ortega and the Funk Master Aljamain Sterling. No need to introduce either of these two guys. Their records and UFC records, whatever. At that point, we're very, very, very sure of what these two guys are. Ortega did start out as a grappling nerd, right? Triangles and whatever, comeback submission wins and whatnot. And then his stand-up started to look good against like the Korean Zombie. He was like piecing the Zombie up. But then, he kind of just like plateaued out as a mid fighter, honestly. He's, not at the level of Volkanovski, although he was close with a submission. And his last time around against Diego Lopez, he got beat pretty thoroughly. I think he lost that fight, right? He was in danger of getting knocked out in round 1, actually. Sterling, 16-5 in the UFC. Wow. Aljamain Sterling, also a pretty decent, veteran. Doesn't really finish his fights early on, if at all. So I think in a 5-round fight, an over 1.5 is pretty fair. I don't think Sterling I don't think Sterling's striking is at a point where he can threaten Ortega with like a first-round knockout. So I think the over 1.5 here is really good. In terms of who wins, I think we got to go Sterling. I think he's levels ahead of Ortega in every department. So Sterling is a pick, not super confident whatsoever. The over 1.5 is very confident. Last fight, we got Johnny Walker taking on Mingyang Zhang. I mean, for this fight alone, I don't think anyone has to overthink. I'm a fan of Johnny Walker's ever since he debuted in the UFC. I mean, he's really funny. He's unpredictable. He's very flashy. But the problem is his chin, right? And like, he doesn't take knockdowns and knockouts very good. He doesn't get knocked down and like struggle. When he gets hit in the chin, he goes into like orbit. His body does like the weird seaweed dance. And it's not the last time he fought against whoever in the UFC that he did that weird, knockout. But it also happened before the UFC, like when he got like knocked down 4 times in a span of like a minute. In one of his other promotional fights, he just doesn't take knockdowns very well. And I think he's going to get knocked down by Mingyang. The problem with Mingyang is I don't think he's that good. How when people show like knockout highlights, right? It looks great, but you have to also take into account of who he's knocking out, right? Like, for example, Sean O'Malley. People keep thinking, oh, O'Malley is dominant on the feet. He's going to give Marab troubles. When you see O'Malley's knockout highlights, it's against guys like Eddie Wineland, man. Eddie Wineland is like 40 years old with no chin. So you gotta also, you know what I mean? You gotta look at who the guy's been knocking out. And Mingyang's knocked out guys like Ozzy Diaz and Brenson Ribeiro, whatever his name is, where he's somewhat decent. And that fight, was pretty close until the knockout, because he was taking punches from Ribeiro himself as well. And then Anthony Smith, where Anthony Smith literally was retiring that fight. He didn't even want to fight. Anthony Smith was not going to fight Ming Yang that night. He gave up. So I'm just saying Ming Yang might be a bit overrated. His 100% finish rate also might be a bit overrated. But I think Johnny Walker is going to boost his overratedness and make his record look better after this fight, because he would have had a knocked out over Johnny Walker, which is a pretty big name in the division. But just a note for self in the future, I think Ming Yang is quite overrated. His punches are powerful, but he also takes a lot of hits as well. He's known for ground and pound finishing, but honestly, ground and pound finishing isn't the best weapon tool to have, because when things go to the ground nowadays, people are much better at defending it and not just get grounded out and pounded out. So I'm just saying, I think Ming Yang is going to win this. I feel like they're both going to exchange, and when they both connect, I am very sure that Johnny Walker will drop like a sack of potatoes and Ming Yang will not. So for that reason, I am going to put Ming Yang here at minus 400. I like the under here, but the line is ridiculous. It's like minus 1,300 for under 4.5, minus 1,200 for under 3.5, minus 800 for under 2.5. So there's no point. There's no point of doing all of that stuff. Ming Yang minus 400 is a pretty good lock. And that is it for this week. Good luck, and we'll see you next week.